4 million black Texans slashed down to just 2 districts. In a Capitol bowling with rage, Jasmine Crockett stares Trump dead in the eye and calls his plan what it is: racist apartheid. For 47 seconds, America froze in stunned silence as insults flew, tempers erupted, and the truth bled out on live TV. This isn't just about Texas losing millions of voices, it's about whether your vote is the next to vanish. So the question is, how much democracy are we willing to lose before we fight back? Stay with us. This is a story worth every second of your time. Spotlights slam on like an ambush. The Texas Capitol isn't just full tonight, it's suffocating. Every seat crammed, every aisle blocked, every breath caught on tape. Helicopters thrum above the dome, news anchors bark outside on live feeds. And inside the chamber the tension is so dense you could cut it with a broken gavel. The crowd knows why they're here. One map, millions of lives, and a nation on edge. Jasmine Crockett doesn't ease into her moment she strikes. Tapers in her hands scatter onto the table like shrapnel. Her voice rips across the chamber. This is not redistricting, this is demolition. These maps are political weapons of mass destruction aimed straight at black and brown Texans. The words ricochet. Reporters jolt forward. Cameras snap in bursts like gunfire, and even seasoned lawmakers shift in their seats, unsettled by the rawness. On the jumbo screens above, the new Texas map glows in neon red. District lines twist unnaturally, slicing neighborhoods like scalpels. Cities or black communities built schools, churches, businesses, they're cracked apart, diluted, caged. Jasmine slams her palm against the podium. 4 million black Texans, reduced to 2 seats, 2. That's not democracy. That's political apartheid. A woman in the gallery gasps. A man mutters under his breath, God help us. Then, without warning, another screen flickers to life. The feed cuts into Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump leans back in his leather chair, framed by gold curtains and American flags. He smirks, not with humor but with cruelty. Stop whining, Jasmine. You lost, we won. Get over it. His voice fills the chamber like gasoline poured over open flame. GOP lawmakers chuckle under their breath. One shouts, tell her, Mr. President. The silence that follows is volcanic. Jasmine steps closer to the microphone, eyes narrowing, hands trembling but not from fear. From fury, her voice drops to a near whisper that somehow carries to the rafters. Whining. Whining is what tyrants hear when truth finally dares to speak. You think you can carve my people out of existence. You think you can bury us. Then you don't know who we are. Her hand rises, pointing to the map projected overhead. Look at these lines. They are not borders, they are chains. And I will not let you wrap them around our children, our future, our democracy. The chamber erupts, Democrats pounding their desks, Republicans shouting order. Order. The gavel slams, useless. Trump laughs from the screen, low and mocking. We'll redraw until Texas is ours forever. And there's nothing you can do. Jasmine doesn't blink. She leans forward, her face inches from the mic, every word a blade. If democracy can be stolen in plain sight, tell me how safe is your own vote? The question doesn't hang, it detonates. Outside, protesters roar loud enough to shake the marble pillars. Inside, the entire nation leans in, knowing this fight has only just begun. The broadcast doesn't cut away, as Crockett's words still echo inside the chamber. The screens outside light up with breaking banners. Redistricting could shift 5 seats to GOP control. Anchors on every network speak in clear, urgent tones, their voices layered over each other like dueling sirens. This could decide the balance of Congress for a decade, one says. Another interrupts. It's not just about maps, it's about erasing millions of voters in broad daylight. The tension spreads like wildfire, from the Capitol steps to kitchen tables across America. Outside, the plaza is a living storm. Thousands of protesters surge against metal barricades, voices colliding into one cry. We are seeds, we are seeds. Homemade signs sway under the floodlights. Democracy or apartheid. Maps can't bury us. Riot police form a line, shields catching the glow of camera flashes. A drumbeat rises from the crowd, primal and relentless, like the pulse of a nation on edge. Every chant ricochets against the marble walls until it sounds less like protest and more like prophecy. Miles away, in a cramped living room in Houston's 5th Ward, a black family huddles around their flickering television. The father sits rigid, his fists pressed against his knees. The mother squeezes her daughter's hand, whispering without looking away from the screen, "They're trying to erase us," the teenage son mutters, "to seats. Out of millions of us, that's slavery all over again." The room is thick, with silence broken only by the newscaster. "If approved, these maps will lock minority communities out of meaningful power for the next decade." The words fall heavy, not as analysis, but as a sentence. Back at the Capitol, the crowd grows louder, refusing to be drowned out. A flare lights the night sky, briefly painting the dome blood red. Reporters shout over the roar, their microphones nearly swallowed by the chants. The question tonight is not if Texas will fight, but how, one anchor declares. The camera pans to a woman in the front line of protesters, tears streaking her face as she shouts, "They tried to bury us before and we grew stronger." Her voice cracks but carries, amplified by the echo of thousands. Inside, Jasmine Crockett glances toward the gallery windows where the chants bleed through. Her jaw tightens, but her eyes glimmer not with defeat, but with the reflection of a fight that refuses to die outside these walls. Trump still smirks on his video link, unmoved, untouched. But the Capitol now trembles with something he cannot mute, a storm building from below. And as the cameras zoom out, fusing the chaos of the chamber, the fury of the streets, and the fear inside that small Houston home, one question rises sharper than any gavel strike, heavier than any poll number. Would you flee to survive or fight when your very voice is on the line? The chamber hasn't cooled from the roar outside. When Trump leans closer to his camera, his grin sharpened into a sneer. His words slice through the feed with deliberate cruelty. "Jasmine, you're nothing but a puppet for weak Democrats." The insult hangs in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Laughter bursts from the Republican side of the room, fists pounding on desks, the sound less like applause and more like a pack of jackals circling their prey. One lawmaker shouts, "Play the race card again, Jasmine." Another adds, "That's all you've got." Their voices merge into a jeer designed not to debate but to humiliate. For a beat, the Capitol feels like a cage. Cameras close in on Crockett's face, waiting to see if she break, if the fury in her eyes will give way to silence. Instead, she leans into the microphone, her voice low and sharp, cutting through the noise like glass shattering. "Better a woman with fire," she snaps, "than a coward with chains." The words don't just answer the insult, they ignite the chamber. Democrats rise to their feet, pounding the tables in solidarity. Protesters outside catch the line as it echoes through live feeds, and within seconds, #WomanWithFire rockets across social media, trending in every state. Trump's smirk falters for a fraction of a second, but his allies drown it out with mocking laughter. One Republican, red-faced, spits back, "Chains? The only chains here are the ones your party forged with lies." The insult backfires. The crowd in the gallery gasps, reporters scramble to capture every syllable, and even the chair's frantic gavel cannot quiet the storm. Jasmine doesn't flinch. She lifts her hand, steady and deliberate, pointing at the glowing map still hanging over their heads. "These chains," she says, voice rising, "are the lines you drew. They don't bind criminals, they bind citizens. They don't keep US safe, they keep us silent." Every word lands like a hammer. Trump scowls on the screen, lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, the tension shifts. It's no longer Jasmine cornered but Trump forced to defend a plan exposed as raw power, stripped of pretense. He leans forward, jabbing a finger toward the camera. "We're building a machine to make America strong again." But Crockett cuts him off before the echo can fade. "No, you're building a machine to crush anyone who doesn't look like you, pray like you, vote like you. And you call that strength?" The chamber falls into a silence more dangerous than shouting. The clash isn't just personal now, it's existential. Democracy against domination, a woman's fire against a man's empire. Outside, the chants swell louder, sensing with the pounding of fists inside the Capitol, as if the whole country is waiting for the next blow. And with her gaze locked on Trump's frozen smirk, Jasmine delivers the line that pierces the silence. "The question isn't whether I have courage, the question is whether your machine can survive when truth refuses to bow." Night falls over Austin, but the Capitol does not sleep. The gavel still echoes from Crockett's last blow when word spreads like lightning. 57 Democratic lawmakers have vanished. Not a resignation, not a retreat and escape, Camera. Crews chase black SUVs tearing away from the building, headlights cutting through the dark like fleeing signals. Within the hour, confirmation crashes onto every screen. They've boarded planes, crossed state lines, landed in Illinois. Not vacation, not cowardice. A maneuver older than filibuster, riskier than protest. Deny quorum, terrorize the machine. The GOP erupts, voices like baying hounds, runaways. One Republican snarls in a press briefing, the word spat out with contempt. Traitors. Another barks, insisting that lawmakers are paid to legislate, not to flee like fugitives. Anchors replay the clip on loop, the phrase Texas Democrats. On the run burning in red across every network chyron. Conservative radio hammers them as deserters. But across social media, a different frame catches fire. Exodus for democracy. Hashtag split the country into before dawn. In a sterile conference room in Chicago, Jasmine Crockett stands before her colleagues, shoulders squared though exhaustion weighs on her frame. Reporters crowd the hallway outside, pressing microphones. Against the glass, Crockett doesn't flinch. "They'll call us cowards," she says, her voice steady. "They'll call us runaways, but hear me clearly, we left to keep the vote alive." The room hums with nervous energy. Some lawmakers wipe sweat from their brows, others grip their phones, watching live feeds of protesters back home. Hope is there, faint but alive, like a candle trembling against a storm. Back in Texas, the Capitol feels haunted, hallways echoing with absence. Desks sit empty, microphones cold, the majority straining to pass a map but failing, numbers slipping through their fingers like water. The speaker slams his gavel in rage, declaring, they'll be dragged back in handcuffs if that's what it takes. Outside, riot police stand shoulder to shoulder, facing down, thousands chanting through the night, "We are seeds, we are seeds." Yet even as defiance surges, doubt calls in the shadows. On cable news, analysts question the gamble. Can fleeing really protect democracy or does it erode it? One asks, a split screen shows Crockett's defiant face on one side, Trump's grin on the other. They think they're clever. Trump mocks from Mar-a-Lago, but all they've done is admit they've lost. His words drip with venom, daring them to return. Crockett hears it all. She stares into the cameras in Chicago, her tone like steel under pressure. "We did not flee to hide. We fled to fight another day, because when democracy is on life support, sometimes you have to rip the wires out of their hands." The words ripple outward, carried into living rooms, replayed on phones, whispered at dinner tables. And as the nation watches to paths diverge, lawmakers branded as fugitives by their foes, heroes by their supporters, one question sears itself into the night. Would you abandon your post if it meant saving democracy, or stay and watch it die in your hands? By morning, the story has already detonated beyond Texas. Live streams from the protesters outside the Capitol surge past 12 million views, phones glowing like torches across the country. The hashtag racist maps ignites on Twitter, climbing into the global top 3. TikTok fills with clips of Crockett's fiery line, "Better a woman with fire than a coward with chains," looped under pounding beats, stitched with captions, like she said what needed to be said. Every corner of the internet is vibrating, but what it means depends entirely on where you look. On Fox News, anchors sneer through bright studio lights. "This isn't resistance," one laughs, shaking his head. "It's a taxpayer-funded vacation." They're sipping wine in Chicago while Texans suffer. B-roll rolls across the screen, blurry paparazzi shots of lawmakers stepping out of a hotel, coffee cups in hand, framed like scandal. The chyron screams, "Democrats abandon Texas," callers flood the network's lines, demanding arrests, calling them traitors. The narrative is set, deserters, cowards, opportunists hiding behind Crockett's firebrand rhetoric. Flip the channel and CNN paints the opposite picture. What we're witnessing is historic resistance, a correspondent intones, voice hushed. Like he's narrating a documentary, the camera cuts to Jasmine Crockett in a Chicago hotel ballroom, standing at a podium draped in an American flag. "We left to keep democracy breathing," she declares, her words clipped into soundbites that play on loop between expert panels. The lower third proclaims, "Standoff in Texas, a fight for the vote." Analysts nod gravely, comparing Crockett's exodus to the civil rights sit-ins of the 1960s. Meanwhile, MSNBC splices live drone footage of the Capitol protests, waves of signs reading "We are seeds, with Crockett's Chicago press conference. The split screen makes it look like two battles happening at once, Texas and Illinois tethered by outrage. But across town, conservative radio howls, "This is theater, nothing more." They've hijacked democracy to feed their egos. The whiplash is dizzying. Ordinary Americans are left trapped between two realities. In Houston, the same black family from the night before watches Fox in the kitchen, CNN in the living room. The father mutters, "Wine and cheese in Chicago, huh?" While his teenage son calls from the doorway, "No, Dad, watch this, she's fighting for us." The mother rubs her temples, staring at both screens at once. Anger and confusion bleed together until they can't tell where outrage ends and fear begins. Even lawmakers feel the fracture. Inside the Chicago hotel, one Democrat slumps against the wall, scrolling Twitter as insults and praise collide in real time. Heroes in one feed, cowards in another. His hand shakes, but Crockett strides past, unflinching, whispering, "Let them talk, we're still holding the line." Her certainty is iron, but even iron can bend under enough fire. The frenzy doesn't slow. It accelerates, feeds on itself, leaving citizens choking on spin while truth drowns in noise. And as the cameras chase both narratives with equal ferocity, one chilling question cuts through the static. When the media can sculpt two different Americas in the same hour, who do you trust to tell you the truth? The morning after the media firestorm, Texas wakes to a new level of menace. The Speaker of the House slams his gavel on live TV, voice trembling with rage as he declares, "Every absent lawmaker will be arrested. We will send state troopers to drag them back in handcuffs if we must." The words detonate like a stun grenade. Protesters outside the Capitol roar louder, but inside the chamber the Republican majority nods grimly, as if the move is not desperation, a destiny. The announcement flashes across phones within seconds. Chirons scream, GOP threatens arrest warrants, helicopters circle overhead, and troopers are spotted idling near airports, their silhouettes caught in grainy live streams. The idea of elected officials being hunted like criminals shakes the nation to its core. Commentators call it a constitutional crisis. For supporters, it's proof the GOP will stop at nothing. For critics, it's the moment democracy itself becomes hostage. And then, as if scripted for maximum impact, Trump himself takes the stage at a rally in Dallas. Spotlights cut through red, white, and blue smoke as his voice booms. "This is just the beginning. Project 2025 will finish what we started." The crowd erupts, chanting retribution. Retribution, the words roll like thunder through the arena, broadcast into millions of homes. He doesn't hide the agenda, he weaponizes it, promising to redraw not just maps, but the entire machinery of power. His grin says what his words don't. Nothing will stop him, not courts, not protests, not Crockett, but Crockett is already moving. In Chicago, surrounded by her colleagues, she steps before a forest of microphones, her face lit not by spotlights, but by the hard glow of resolve. Her tone is sharp enough to cut through the chaos. "If they think they can jail us into silence, they are gravely mistaken. We will see them in court. We will take this fight into every courtroom, every street, every ballot box. Because this isn't about lawmakers running, it's about citizens being erased." The crowd of reporters surges forward, questions pelting her like stones, but she stands unflinching, each word more defiant than the last. Still, suspense holds tight. Will troopers actually storm across state lines? Will judges block the arrests or enable them? Analysts speculate, lawyers argue, families hold their breath. Every hour feels like the countdown to a collision no one can control. Protesters outside the Capitol brace for confrontation. Some kneel in prayer, others hammer drums that echo into the marble halls. The world watches, waiting for the next headline, the next escalation. Crockett raises her hand one final time, silencing the clamor around her. Her voice drops low, heavy with the weight of history. When the law itself is weaponized, the question is no longer whether we can win. The question is who among us will dare to protect justice when justice is under attack. The chamber lights dim, and suddenly the wall behind Jasmine Crockett explodes with numbers projected 10 feet tall. The digits burn into the eyes of every lawmaker, every reporter, every protester glued to their live stream. For million black Texans, Jasmine declares, her voice cracking like a whip, and, under this map, only to districts where they have a real chance to choose their representative. Gasps ripple through the gallery, Some lean forward as if the map itself were a weapon. Others sit frozen, knowing the numbers are irrefutable. The GOP bench shifts in their seats, but one rises, waving a hand dismissively. It's just demographics. He scoffs, his voice dripping with condescension. Nothing sinister. Populations move. Maps change. That's politics. The words land like a dare, as if challenging Jasmine to prove otherwise. She doesn't blink. She slams her fist against the podium, the crack echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. No, she fires back, her tone molten steel. This isn't demographics. This is political apartheid. You are not drawing lines, you are drawing chains. You are shackling for million voices into silence and calling it democracy. The word apartheid stuns the room. Phones rise higher. Fingers scramble to post. Headlines begin writing themselves in real time. On the screen, charts shift again. Houston and Dallas glow bright blue, but jagged red lines slice through them, cutting neighborhoods like arteries. A map of San Antonio flashes next. Black and Latino communities splintered into districts where their votes are swallowed whole. Jasmine's pointer traces the cuts. You call this natural? Tell me what's natural about surgically gutting entire communities and locking their votes into cages. Tell me what's natural about turning 4 million people into a statistical rounding error. The silence is unbearable. Even some Republicans avoid her gaze, their knuckles white around, tense, their eyes darting to the exits. But she presses harder, each word a blow. We are not invisible. We are not fractions. We are not demographics to be managed. We are citizens, and this map reduces us to less than 1 voice in 10. Outside the Capitol, the crowd catches the word apartheid and erupts, chanting it in unison, their roar bleeding through the stone walls until it rattles a microphones inside. The sound makes the GOP flinch, but Jasmine straightens taller, feeding on the energy outside. This is not representation, she declares, eyes locked on Trump's smirking face still glowing on the jumbo screen. This is revenge disguised as governance. This is theft dressed up as math. And history will not forgive it. For a moment, the air seems to stop moving. The screen behind her freezes on the brutal math. 4 million gives 2. The whole nation stares at it, unable to look away. And then Jasmine leans into the mic, her voice dropping to a razor's edge. So tell me, do numbers lie, or do they reveal the deepest truths about who we are? The screen behind Jasmine Crockett flickers, the maps dissolve, and in their place a new reel begins to play. At first it looks like ordinary campaign footage, Trump at rallies, fists pumping, red hats flooding the frame, but the audio cuts, sharper, the words stripped of applause, raw and unvarnished. Retribution, Trump bellows in one clip, his jaw clenched. Another soundbite thunders, we will have vengeance. His voice echoes across the chamber, hollow and threatening, like a warning played from a dictator's playbook. Jasmine steps closer to the projection, her silhouette cutting across the screen as if daring to face him head-on. You think these maps are about demographics? She says, her tone a razor's edge. They're not. They're the first strike in a larger plan, Project 2025. Reporters lean forward, pens halted in midair. Lawmakers whisper nervously, the phrase rippling like a rumor suddenly confirmed. Jasmine's words slice through the tension. This isn't just about Texas, this is about building an America where elections don't matter, because the outcome is fixed before the first ballot is cast. The footage rolls again. Trump grins on stage, telling a roaring crowd, we'll punish those who betrayed us. We'll take back what was stolen. His audience cheers like a mob at an execution, cut after cut, each clip more chilling than the last, his voice layering over itself until it feels less like a politician and more like an overlord. The gallery shifts in their seats, some clutch their phones as if holding on to a lifeline. Jasmine doesn't let the silence settle. She slams her fist on the podium, the sound cracking like thunder. This is not politics as usual, this is vengeance written into law. Every line on that map is a weapon aimed at communities of color. Every speech he gives is a blueprint for dismantling democracy itself. Her voice rises, fierce but trembling with the weight of the truth. He calls it retribution. I call it what history will. Authoritarianism in plain sight. Outside, the chants grow louder, mixing with the sound of sirens in the distance. Protesters project Trump's rally clips onto the walls of the Capitol, forcing passers-by to see what's at stake. Inside, the glow of the screen makes faces look pale, drained, haunted. Even some Republicans shift uncomfortably, realizing the sound bites they once applauded now echo like confessions of intent. Jasmine's eyes lock on the cameras, her words aimed not at the chamber, but at the millions watching. This is not about left or right. It's about whether your voice, your family, your future can be erased with the stroke of a pen. Do you understand what's happening? We are not debating policy, we are staring into the mouth of dictatorship. The reel freezes on Trump's raised fist. A single word suspended in the air: retribution. Jasmine lowers her voice to a whisper that slices through the tension like a blade. So answer me. America, are we heading toward democracy, or are we already walking into dictatorship? The ink is barely dry on Trump's latest declaration when a new battlefield opens. At dawn, in a federal courthouse wrapped in steel barricades, a coalition of civil rights lawyers strides up the steps with boxes of documents stacked like ammunition. Cameras swarm them, capturing every determined jawline, every briefcase slammed shut with finality. Their announcement slices through the static of morning news. We are filing an emergency lawsuit to stop the racist Texas maps before they strangle democracy. The words ripple across the country, but inside the courthouse the atmosphere is electric with dread. GOP lawyers sit smug at the defense table, their suits immaculate, their smiles rehearsed. One rises, brushing invisible dust off his sleeve before delivering the line crafted for sound bites. "This is nothing more than political theater," he says, smirking at the cameras. "Democrats couldn't win fairly, so now they run to the courts to act out their drama." The statement lands like poison, designed not to argue but to sneer, to trivialize the fight as spectacle. Reporters scribble furiously, knowing both headlines are already written. Lawsuit filed or lawsuit fails. In the gallery, Jasmine Crockett sits still, her face unreadable, every muscle locked against the storm of taunts and jeers. Around her, supporters clutch signs pressed against their chests, silent but trembling with urgency. Trump's allies grin from the back row, confident the machine will grind on. Unstoppable. The judge enters, the gavel drops, and the room falls into the kind of silence that feels heavier than sound. The lawyers for the plaintiffs rise first, their voices sharp and urgent. They present maps torn apart in vivid color, statistics laid bare. Millions of black Texans, just to districts where their voices matter. "This isn't governance," one attorney thunders, "it's a coup written in ink." Gasps ripple across the gallery, but the GOP counsel answers with a chuckle, tossing their rebuttal across the courtroom like ash. "Every map favors someone. That's politics. If you don't like it, win more votes." The cruelty is casual, deliberate, designed to diminish. Through it all, Jasmine whispers under her breath, barely audible to those nearest her, "If they bury us, we'll grow." A phrase not shouted but planted like a seed, carried through the room by the trembling silence that follows. Her supporters catch it, repeat it under their breath, until the gallery hums with it like a secret hymn. Reporters jot it down, sensing it may be the line history remembers. On this day, it's replayed years from now. The session adjourns for the day, but the courthouse steps erupt as soon as the doors swing open. Protesters clash with counter-protesters. Chants of "We Are Seeds" colliding with "Stop the Theater." Riot police separate the lines, shields raised, batons ready. The courthouse becomes less a building than a symbol of walls closing in, of cracks beginning to spread. And as night falls, the question spreads across headlines, protest signs, and whispered prayers alike. Can seeds of resistance truly crack the concrete walls of power, or will they be crushed before they ever touch the light? The chamber hums with anticipation as Jasmine Crockett approaches the podium again, her hands gripping a folder so tight the paper bends under her fingers. The room is restless, everyone senses something heavy is about to drop. She waits for silence, then pulls out a single printed page, lifts it high for the cameras, and unleashes the words like a lightning strike. This is an internal GOP email. It reads, and I quote, "Cut black vote in Houston and Dallas. Reduce their influence permanently." For a second, the Capitol doesn't breathe. Then chaos erupts, Republicans leap to their feet, veins bulging, their voices crashing into one another. Fake news. One screams, pounding his fist against the desk. Another shouts, "That's fabricated trash." Their denials blur into a storm of rage, desperate to smother the words before they sink into the public's mind. The speaker bangs his gavel, shouting for order, but the sound is swallowed by the frenzy. Jasmine doesn't flinch, she holds the page steady, her eyes scanning the GOP side of the room like a predator watching prey scatter. "Don't you dare call this fake," she fires back, her voice shaking with fury. "This is your language, your fingerprints, your strategy spelled out in black and white. You call it redistricting. I call it what it is, cheating in the dark." Cameras zoom in on the paper in her hand, the words glowing under the harsh chamber lights. Then, like a blade cutting through nose, a bulletin flashes across every reporter's phone at once. "FBI verifies authenticity of leaked GOP email." Gasps ripple through the chamber, reporters bolt from their seats, rushing to blast the headline into the world. The GOP bench erupts louder, but their fury now sounds more like panic than denial. One lawmaker buries his face in his hands. Another points a trembling finger at Crockett, shouting hoarsely, "This is an ambush," but the truth is already gone, carried across millions of screens. Unstoppable, outside, the protesters explode with renewed energy. Chants of "We are seeds" morph into caught red-handed. The words reverberate through the marble walls, sensing with the chants. From the gallery, the line between courtroom, legislature, and battlefield dissolves. Jasmine slams the email onto the podium like evidence in a murder trial. "You tried to carve democracy behind closed doors. You tried to erase voices in secret, but now the whole world can see your hands dripping with the ink of suppression." The noise crescendos, lawmakers yelling, protesters thundering, cameras flashing like gunfire. The speaker's gavel is useless, drowned out by the sound of a system cracking. Jasmine leans forward, her voice cutting through the storm with a quiet, surgical precision. "If leaders will cheat in secret, if they'll write instructions to erase entire communities, then tell me what else are they hiding from you?" The chamber is still quaking from the leaked email when something no one expects happens. A man in a Navy suit rises slowly from the Republican benches. It's Congressman Daniel Whitaker, a moderate long known for towing the party line, a figure rarely quoted, rarely noticed. But now every camera swivels toward him, lenses zooming as if history itself just shifted its weight. His hand trembles as he adjusts his microphone. His colleagues glare daggers, but he clears his throat and speaks anyway. "This map," he says, voice cracking but steadying with each word, "is indefensible." The silence that follows is volcanic. Republicans freeze as if the floor just caved in. A few hiss under their breath, sit down, others mutter curses sharp enough to cut. But Whitaker presses forward, sweat beating at his temple. "I've studied the numbers. I've seen the lines cut through Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. I can't call this representation. I can't call this democracy. I can only call it wrong." Gasps scatter across the chamber, reporters nearly leaping out of their chairs. It's the first crack from inside the fortress, and everyone knows it. Then the backlash detonates. A senior Republican slams his fist into the desk, snarling, "Traitor." Another shouts, "You're finished." The word traitor catches fire, repeated like a chant, like a sentence being carved into his career. His phone buzzes non-stop, texts pouring in from party operatives, threats from donors, messages of betrayal from supposed friends. His face pales, but he doesn't sit down. He knows the machine is already grinding him under, yet he refuses to yield. From the Democratic side, Jasmine Crockett watches with a mixture of shock and recognition. She knows the price of speaking against power, knows how fast allies vanish when courage outweighs calculation. Their eyes meet across the chamber, just for a second. He nods faintly, as if to say, "If I fall, let it mean something." Outside, protesters catch wind of his words. The chants shift, morphing into something new. One truth, one crack. Social media erupts, clips of his statements surge across platforms, half hailing him as a patriot, half condemning him as a coward who betrayed his tribe. Cable panels break into chaos. Was it bravery or political suicide? Back inside, Whitaker's voice grows firmer. "History will not remember who yelled loudest today," he says, staring down his colleagues. "It will remember who chose silence and who chose truth." The chamber is a tinderbox, one spark away from burning down its own roof. Republican leaders whisper furiously, plotting punishments, committee removal, primary challengers, donor blacklists. His career may already be over, but his words have detonated a fracture that cannot be undone. And as the noise swallows the room, one question slices through louder than any chant, any gavel strike, any denial. Would you risk your career, your allies, Your very future. Just to tell the truth, the Capitol chamber is still reeling from Whitaker's defection when the screens flicker again, and Trump's face fills every inch of the wall. His jaw is tight, his cheeks flushed with fury, and when he speaks, his voice booms like rolling thunder through a storm. Jasmine, he growls, every syllable laced with venom, you'll pay for this humiliation. The words aren't a warning, they're a sentence. To GOP side erupts in applause, pounding desks like war drums. His allies chant his name as though he were a general calling soldiers to arms. But Jasmine Crockett doesn't flinch. She stands at her podium, hands gripping the wood, shoulders squared against the gale. The cameras catch the steel in her eyes, the sharp rise and fall of her chest as she inhales the venom and exhales fire. Her voice cuts across his roar with blade-like precision. No, Donald. The people will make you pay at the ballot box. The gallery gasps, the chamber tilts, and for a moment the roar outside the Capitol fuses with the defiance inside. Protesters cheer so loudly it seeps through the walls, their chants matching her cadence, amplifying her defiance. At the ballot box, at the ballot box. It becomes a rhythm, a heartbeat that rattles the microphones. Trump snarls from the screen, his face twisted into something wry, unguarded. He slams his palm onto his desk, the thud picked up by the feet. You think crowds in the street can save you? You think hashtags can beat me? I built this movement, and I will bury you beneath it. His words drip with rage, daring her to strike back again, and she does. Jasmine lifts the leaked email still lying on her podium, holds it high under the unforgiving light. This is your movement, she shouts, her voice echoing like a verdict. Cheating in secret, suppression in ink, retaliation dressed up as law. This isn't strength, Donald, it's fear. Fear of a people you cannot control. The Democrats rise to their feet, pounding their fists in unison. Republicans bark insults, their voices cracking as if the ground itself were slipping beneath them. Trump leans closer to the camera, eyes narrowing into slits. Fear, he spits. The only ones who should be afraid are you and your little army. Retribution is coming. The words hit like a strike of lightning, dangerous and intoxicating. But Jasmine doesn't step back. She leans forward instead, her face carved with defiance, her voice quaking with unshakable resolve. No, Donald, what's coming isn't retribution, it's accountability. And you can't outrun the people forever. The chamber falls into a stunned hush, both sides locked in the gravity of the exchange. The air is thick, electric, as though history itself is holding its breath, and as the screens freeze on Trump's skull and Jasmine's fire, one question pulses through every living room, every protest, every whispered conversation across America. Who truly wins when raw power collides head-on with relentless persistence? The sun sets in blood-red streaks over Austin, but the streets around the Capitol blaze brighter. 50,000 voices pound the air with a single word: justice. The chant rolls like thunder, wave after wave, rattling the marble columns as if the building itself were trembling. Homemade signs tower above the crowd. We are seeds, no more chains, justice or nothing. The plaza is a sea of faces, fists, and fire, surging against the barricades. Helicopters hover low, cameras capturing every trembling heartbeat of the city on edge. Police form a wall of steel at the Capitol steps, shields glinting under floodlights, batons strapped tight to their belts. Their radios crackle with coded orders, their helmets fob with breath. The tension is electric, the kind that precedes either history or disaster. Every step forward by the crowd is met with boots grinding deeper into the pavement. One spark, one shove, one word too loud and the night will ignite. Then a ripple moves through the masses, a wave of recognition spreading faster than the chants. At first, it's just a rumor whispered across shoulders, then it becomes reality. Jasmine Crockett is here, not in the chamber, not behind a podium, but in the thick of the people she defends. She pushes through the crowd, hair loose in the wind, her suit jacket creased from hours of battle, a bullhorn gripped in her hand. Phones shoot up like fireworks as protesters surge to see her. She climbs onto a makeshift platform, nothing more than a stack of protest signs and crates, and raises the bullhorn. The noise dies down as if the city itself holds its breath. Her voice booms wry and unfiltered. They want you silent, they want you buried. But tonight, your voices are so loud this Capitol cannot stand without shaking. The crowd erupts, the chant of justice, justice, swelling louder than before. Even the police shift uneasily, their formation trembling at the sheer force of sound. Tears streak down faces in the front row as she points toward the barricades. Look at them. They are here because power is afraid of you. They are here because truth terrifies them more than fire. And I am here because no matter the risk, I will not leave you alone. Her voice cracks with both fury and faith, and the crowd answers with a roar that shakes the helicopters above. A bottle clatters near the police line. Shields lift, batons twitch, the moment teeters on the knife's edge of chaos. But Jasmine lifts her hand, steady as stone, and the crowd falls into a tense silence. Her voice drops low, almost a whisper through the bullhorn. Would you march if the price of justice was blood? Would you keep walking if they met you with chains instead of answers? The crowd doesn't flinch. They roar back in unison, their voices so fierce it drowns out the sirens. Yes, and in that moment, under the blood-red sky, 50,000 hearts beat as one, choosing risk, choosing defiance, choosing to march no matter the cost. By dawn the morning after the march, America is already fractured into two screens. On Fox News, the aerial shots of the Capitol Plaza play on loop, burning flares, a bottle clattering near police lines, shields raised against a wave of fists. Anchors sneer with rehearsed certainty. These aren't protesters, one says, his tone dripping contempt. They're rioters, thugs trying to terrorize Texas. The chyron below blares in red. Chaos in Austin. Mob rule. Call in guests. Demand arrests. Some even muttering the word domestic terrorists. Their narrative is clean, simple, brutal. Jasmine Crockett has unleashed anarchy. But flip the channel and CNN paints a mirror opposite. Their footage highlights Crockett on the crates, bullhorn in hand, her voice breaking as she swears not to leave her people alone. What we're witnessing is history, a correspondent declares solemnly. 50,000 freedom fighters standing against maps designed to erase them. The screen splits between her defiance and the chanting crowd. Justice, justice, subtitled. Like scripture, analysts nod gravely, one comparing the moment to Selma, another calling it the new march on Washington. Their chyron glows, freedom fighters stand up to racist maps, and then there is the battlefield with no anchors, no filter. Social media. Twitter explodes with real-time clashes, shaky phone footage of protesters choking on tear gas, cop shoving, DAC with shields, chance rattling windows. TikTok edits roll side-by-side comparisons, Fox calling them rioters, while CNN calls them heroes. Captions simply, whose truth? Instagram stories flood with images of Crockett's face lit by floodlights, juxtaposed with cops gripping batons. One viral tweet reads, when 50,000 voices roar, media tries to choose which America survives, ordinary families watching are caught in the crossfire. In a Dallas diner, two televisions play back-to-back, one Fox, one CNN. At one table, an old man spits, these punks should be jailed. At another, a young mother wipes a tear, whispering, finally, someone's fighting for us. The same scene, two interpretations, one country splitting in real time. Inside her Chicago hotel room, Crockett watches the split-screen coverage in silence. On Fox she's a radical, a puppet of chaos. On CNN she's a symbol of defiance. On Twitter she's both and more. She turns to her staff, exhaustion shadowing her eyes, but her voice steady. They want confusion. They want us divided over words while they redraw the world beneath our feet. Her aide mutters, they're winning the spin war. Jasmine shakes her head. Spin can't bury truth forever. But truth has to fight to breathe. Outside, the protests continue into the night, banners glowing under street lamps, chants rolling like thunder against the barricades. Cameras capture it all, but every outlet twists the frame. To some, they are rioters. To others, freedom fighters. To themselves, they are seeds refusing to be buried. And as the battle of images rages louder than the chants on the street, one question sears across the nation's conscience. In a war of narratives, when truth itself is on trial, whose version survives and whose is buried alive, the Capitol Plaza is already a pressure cooker, and the first canister arcs into the sky. It spins, hissing, before slamming into the pavement and spewing a choking white cloud. Panic detonates, protesters cough, stumble, claw at their eyes, their chance of justice. Splintering into screams, the crowd surges back, a tidal wave of bodies crashing against barricades. Shoes are lost, signs abandoned, hands grip strangers. In the chaos, And then comes the scream that slices through everything. A child's cry, cameras swing violently, phones jostle for focus, and there in the thick of the stampede is a boy no older than 8, knocked to the ground, swallowed by a forest of stomping feet. His small hands reach upward, desperate, before disappearing again in the crush. Protesters shout frantically, trying to form a shield, but the momentum is too violent, too blind. The child is seconds away from being crushed and then the lens catches something no one expects. Jasmine Crockett, bullhorn discarded, plunges into the chaos herself. Security screams her name, staffers grab for her arm, but she tears free and dives toward the smoke. She coughs, eyes streaming, but her focus locks on the bull. In a single motion she drops to her knees, pushes bodies aside, and lifts him into her arms. The cameras capture it live, her suit jacket streaked with dirt, her face twisted with both pain and resolve. The child clinging to her neck as she rises from the gas. The crowd roars not in panic now, but in awe. Protesters surge to shield her, forming a human wall as she staggers back toward safety. Police hesitate, their formation faltering as the image unfolds before them. A protester shouts, "She saved him." Another cries, "Look at her look." And suddenly, the narrative shifts in real time. Networks scramble. On Fox, the feed glitches, Anka's stammering before muttering that she recklessly endangered herself, but CNN replays the clip on loop, labeling it the moment. Social media explodes. Hashtags flood the feed. Hashtag she saved him. Hashtag Crockett courage. Hashtag just to see Hasanum. The video racks up millions of views before the tear gas cloud even clears. Back in the crowd, Crockett crouches low, handing the bow to his sobbing mother. Her voice shakes, but cuts through the nose. No child should bleed for a politician's map. The line is raw, unscripted, but it detonates across the airwaves. Protesters chant her name now, not just justice, but Jasmine. Jasmine. The plaza trembles with renewed fury, the fear alchemized into power. The cameras zoom tight on her face, red eyes, tear-streaked cheeks, jaw clenched like stone. And in that moment, she isn't just a lawmaker sparring over maps. She is a woman who risked everything to pull a stranger's child from the jaws of chaos. The gavel inside the chamber can't silence this. The spin on TV can't contain it. The world has seen it, live and unfiltered. And as the footage loops endlessly, one piercing question hangs heavier than the tear gas in the air. What kind of leader risks everything to save a stranger, and what does that say about the ones who wouldn't? The order comes down with the weight of a hammer striking steel. In a televised address, the Texas governor lifts a freshly signed document for the cameras, his pen still wet with ink. These warrants authorize the arrest of every absent lawmaker who fled this state, he declares, his voice booming like a verdict. They will be dragged back to the Capitol in chains, if that's what it takes. The gavel of power has turned into a set of handcuffs. The chamber erupts in cheers from Republicans, while outside, the news detonates like a bomb. Screens across America flash the headline, "Governor signs arrest warrants." Reporters swarm airports, train stations, and hotels, their lenses searching for Democrats now branded fugitives. State troopers gather in clusters, uniforms pressed, wrists resting on holstered cuffs. Helicopters circle overhead, cameras catching glimpses of convoys preparing to roll. What began as a political standoff now resembles manhunt. In Chicago, the Democrats watch the announcement from a hotel ballroom, the air heavy with disbelief. Some pace the carpet, muttering in shock, others sink into chairs, phones buzzing, with messages from terrified families back home. And then Jasmine Crockett laughs not with humor but with bitterness sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Arrest us," she says, eyes burning, "for defending democracy." Her voice carries across the room, igniting the exhaustion into fury. They want to make martyrs of us. But they forget martyrs don't disappear, they multiply. The cameras lock on her, reporters scribbling furiously as she strides to the podium. "We are not criminals," she declares, every syllable dripping with defiance. "We are representatives, elected to protect the people's vote. If they jail us for standing up, then let the world see Texas for what it has become, a state where democracy is handcuffed and freedom is booked into a cell." Gasps scatter across the room, and applause erupts from her colleagues. The statement is already being clipped, uploaded, looped across social feeds. Within minutes, #ArrestMe to trends worldwide. Back in Austin, The Capitol steps turn into a battleground of words and wills. Protesters hoist signs reading democracy on trial and who's next. Police lines tighten, the threat of confrontation boiling just beneath the surface. A chant rises, half fury, half prayer. We are not criminals. The words ricochet off the marble, loud enough to bleed through TV broadcasts, and still the governor doubles down, snarling into microphones. They will face consequences. You cannot flee your duty. But Crockett's answer is already cutting through the nose, rebroadcast across every platform. The only duty more sacred than showing up to vote is refusing to show up for tyranny. The night thickens with tension, every second pulling the nation closer to a collision. And as sirens wail in the distance, one question slices like a blade through living rooms across America. When standing up for democracy becomes a crime, what would you do, submit or defy? Dallas turns into a furnace of rage the night Trump takes the stage. Spotlights cut through clouds of smoke, thousands of fists thrust into the air as the former president leans into the microphone. His words drop like lead, heavy and deliberate. We'll redraw, deport, and dominate. The crowd erupts, stomping the floor so hard the cameras shake. Then the chant begins low at first, then swelling until it shakes the rafters. Retribution. Retribution. Every syllable feels less like politics and more like a call to arms. Faces painted with fury glare up at him as if he were not just a candidate, but a warlord. The camera pans across a sea of signs. Take it back. One nation. One voice. The message is naked. Maps to erase. Deportations to divide. Domination to silence. Networks broadcast it live. Some in awe, some in horror, but all knowing history is being written in real time. One brutal promise at a time. In Chicago, Jasmine Crockett watches from a crowded hotel ballroom. Her colleagues lean forward, their expressions twisted with disbelief and dread. She doesn't blink. Her voice breaks the silence, raw and resolute. This is no longer politics, it's war on minorities. Reporters twit their heads toward her, tense, scratching furiously as she continues, her tone edged with both fear and fire. When leaders say redraw, they mean erase. When they say deport, they mean destroy. And when they say dominate, they mean strip millions of their right to exist in their own democracy. Her words reverberate through the room, live-streamed instantly, clipped and shared by millions. Protesters outside the hotel repeat her line into megaphones, turning it into a chant. This is war. This is war. Meanwhile, inside the Dallas arena, Trump smirks as if daring her to fight back, his supporters roaring louder, drowning out doubt with rage. The clash is no longer hidden in legal arguments or maps. It's out in the open now, a battle of visions, one side chanting retribution, the other refusing to bow. And as both narratives spiral across America, one question hammers through every screen. What happens when hate is dressed as policy? And who will stand tall enough to rip the mask away? The nose of chance and gavel strikes fades as Jasmine Crockett slips into a narrow side office, the door clicking shut behind her. The silence is suffocating. She collapses into a chair, shoulders trembling, makeup smudged by sweat and smoke. For the first time in days, there are no cameras, no microphones, no allies demanding fire. Just Jasmine, alone with the weight of a state that wants her silenced. Tears streak down her cheeks, hot and relentless, the kind that sting more than they heal. She buries her face in her hands, the exhaustion crashing over her like a tide. Images flood her mind, her grandmother bent over cotton fields, her grandfather marching across bridges under police batons, the names of ancestors who fought to claim rights they were never guaranteed. Their ghosts sit with her now, whispering through memory. Don't give in. She breathes raggedly, her chest heaving, the ache of despair pressing against her ribs like iron. For a split second, she wonders if this fight can even be won. If the machine of suppression is simply too vast, too ruthless, too willing to crush anyone who dares to resist. But then something inside shifts, her tears dry on her cheeks, leaving trails like war paint. She straightens, fists clenching tight, nails digging crescents into her palms. She whispers first, then repeats louder, until the words feel less like a phrase and more like a vow. We are seeds. Her voice steadies, stronger with each repetition. They bury us, we grow. They cut us, we multiply. They silence us, we roar louder than before. The despair still lingers, but now it fuels something deeper, older, Indestructible, she rises, wipes her face, and stares at her reflection in the window pane, Capitol floodlights glowing in the glass behind her. What she sees isn't a broken woman but a vessel of every struggle that came before her. To fight isn't just hers, it belongs to generations past and millions alive who refuse to vanish quietly. The silence of the office becomes something else now, not emptiness, but preparation. As Jasmine grips the doorknob, ready to step back into the roar of history, one question lingers heavy in the air, echoing beyond the walls of that quiet room. Can resilience be reborn in the darkest hour, or is that the only place it's ever truly born? The federal courthouse is a fortress this morning, barricades stretching for blocks, cameras stacked on tripods like rifles pointed at the door. Inside, the air is thick with anticipation. Every pew is filled, journalists scribbling, activists clutching prayer beads, citizens pressing palms together as if this were not law but liturgy. The judge enters, robes heavy with history, and the gavel cracks against the wood. Silence falls, sharp enough to cut. At the defense table, GOP lawyers lean back in polished chairs, smug smiles curling like smoke. One adjusts his cufflinks before tossing out the line meant to break the tension. "This is over." His voice drips arrogance, echoing off marble walls as if the outcome were already written. The smirk travels down the row of Republicans in attendance, nodding to one another like conspirators sharing the punchline of a cruel joke. But then Jasmine Crockett rises. She doesn't shuffle papers or clear her throat. She stands tall, eyes burning, voice low at first but carrying with surgical precision. "You want to call this over? You want to say democracy died quietly, without a sound? Then hear me now, because we have been here before." She gestures toward the gallery, toward the cameras, toward history itself. "We've been here in Montgomery, where buses were boycotted. We've been here in Selma, where marchers crossed a bridge and were met with batons. We've been here in Washington, where a dream was spoken into a microphone that carried across generations, and every single time, they said it was over. Every single time, they were wrong." The courtroom shifts. Reporters look up, pens frozen mid-stroke. Citizens in the gallery lean forward, tears breaking silently down their cheeks. The GOP table stiffens, their smirks faltering under the weight of her words. Jasmine's hand slams down on the redistricting map projected on the screen. For a million black Texans, caged into 2 districts. This is not representation, it is retaliation. This is not democracy, it is retribution. "And I will not stand by while my people are erased with the stroke of a pen." Her voice rises now, fueled by decades of buried voices behind her. "The Voting Rights Act was signed in blood and sweat and sacrifice, and if you think we will let you bury it under these lines, then you have forgotten what grows when seeds are planted in struggle." The judge's gavel slams again, but the silence that follows belongs not to him, but to her. Every eye is locked on Jasmine, every camera red light blinking like a heartbeat. And as her words hang suspended in the air, one question grips the nation tighter than any ruling ever could. Can one voice echo across history and force it to listen? The gavel slams, and every ear strains for the words that could decide history. But instead of closure, the judge delivers a twist. "The ruling will be delayed." Gasps sweep the courtroom, anger bubbling in whispers, pens scratching furiously across notebooks. Cameras flash, desperate to capture faces, Republicans masking relief, Democrats tightening jaws, and Jasmine Crockett standing motionless, eyes steady like steel. The law stalls, but the streets do not. Outside the courthouse, the delay sparks not silence but wildfire. By nightfall, protests erupt not only in Texas, but in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles. Drone shots capture rivers of people marching, with banners lit by headlights and cell phones. Their chant carries across state lines, deafening in its simplicity. "We are seeds." The phrase, once whispered in a quiet office, now thunders across the continent like a second heartbeat for democracy itself. Networks split-screen the chaos. On one side, lawmakers filing out grim-faced. On the other, hundreds of thousands marching. In cities coast to coast, social media floods with images. A grandmother in Montgomery holding a sign that reads "Still Fighting." Students in Houston painting slogans on the pavement. A child in Boston gripping her father's shoulders as she chants Jasmine's name. The verdict hasn't been given, but the people have already spoken. And somewhere in Mar-a-Lago, Trump stares at the television glow. For once, the smirk is gone. His jaw is set, his eyes narrowed, the weight of silence heavier than any insult he's ever hurled. The chants on screen are louder than his rallies, the movement bigger than his threats. He looks cornered, a man watching the crowd slip from his grasp. The law waits. The judge delays, but the streets roar with an answer that drowns both. And as America watches a nation march without permission, one question burns hotter than any gavel strike. Even without a verdict, who truly won? The cameras zoom in, every red light blinking like 1,000 eyes fixed on one woman. Jasmine Crockett doesn't stand behind the podium now. She steps forward, into the frame, into the living rooms of millions of Americans holding their breath. Her voice doesn't crack, doesn't falter, it lands like thunder on glass. If justice is silenced, democracy dies. Will you rise or stand silent? The words hang in the air, daring the nation to answer, daring them to feel the weight of the choice pressing against their own chests. The screen fractures into a sweeping montage. A nurse still in scrubs, raising a sign outside her hospital before heading to the night shift. Factory workers marching shoulder to shoulder, grease still on their hands, students pouring out of classrooms, textbooks clutched in one arm, protest banners in the other. Families pushing strollers through crowded streets, chanting with children perched on their shoulders. Drone shots rise higher, capturing rivers of humanity stretching through cities, highways, bridges. A tide of voices no gerrymandered line can contain. The music swells, drums and strings pounding like the heartbeat of a country rediscovering itself. Across the split screen, faces blur into one chorus, old and young, black and white, immigrant and native-born, their mouths forming the same word, justice. The images bleed together until they feel less like protest footage and more like prophecy. This is what democracy looks like when it refuses to die. The camera cuts back to Jasmine one last time. Her eyes glisten, but her jaw is carved from stone. She doesn't shout now. She whispers with a power that shakes louder than screams. They tried to bury us. They forgot we are seeds. The screen fades to black, but her words echo, stitched into every image the audience has just seen. Then a single line flashes across the void, stark and inignorable. What will you do when democracy is on the line? The question doesn't just invite reflection, it demands an answer, pulling the viewer into the fight as if history itself were waiting for their reply. The story reminds us that democracy is not an abstract ideal, it lives or dies through the choices of ordinary people who dare to stand up when silence feels safer. Jasmine's fight shows that courage often means risking comfort, reputation, even safety, to defend truth and justice. The lesson is clear. When injustice hides behind laws or policies, it is our responsibility to challenge it with persistence and unity. Seeds of resistance only grow when planted by human hands willing to act. So ask yourself, when your voice is needed most, will you stay silent or will you rise? Thank you for watching until this moment and for standing with us on this journey for justice. Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know what moved you most in this story. Together, our voices make a difference.